From the moment he stopped walking, the energy shifted slightly. He stood tall, calm, and confident, as if the costume was not a disguise but a part of who he truly was. The judges asked him the usual questions. His answers were humble, respectful, and surprisingly grounded. He explained where he came from, how long he had dreamed of this moment, and why the costume mattered to him. He said it represented the courage he never had growing up, the confidence he was still learning to carry, and the dream he refused to let go of. Some judges nodded, others listened carefully, but skepticism still hung in the air. You could almost hear the thoughts racing through their minds. Was this another gimmick? Was this someone trying to hide a lack of talent behind an outfit? The audience felt it too. A few people leaned back in their seats, preparing for something unusual. Others leaned forward, curious despite themselves. The music had not started yet, but the tension was already thick. Then he took a deep breath. The first note changed everything. The moment his voice left his lips, the room froze. It was not just good. It was powerful, controlled, emotional, and filled with a depth that felt impossible to come from the person standing there in that costume. The sound was rich and clear, soaring through the theater with a confidence that silenced every whisper and erased every doubt. Eyes widened, smiles disappeared and were replaced by pure shock. One of the judges instinctively sat up straighter, as if their body reacted before their mind could catch up. As he continued to sing, it became clear that this was not luck or a single impressive note. He had technique, he had range, he had emotion. Every word carried meaning, every phrase told a story, and every high note landed perfectly without strain. The costume no longer mattered. The crown was no longer a surprise. It felt earned. The audience began to respond almost unconsciously. Heads nodded. Hands slowly came together in soft applause between phrases. Some people placed their hands over their mouths, unable to believe what they were hearing. The judges exchanged looks that said everything words could not. They knew they were witnessing something rare. Halfway through the performance, he closed his eyes, completely lost in the music. In that moment, it felt like the stage disappeared and all that remained was his voice and the story he was telling. You could feel his journey in every note. The struggles, the doubt, the hope, and the unbreakable belief that brought him to this stage. This was not just singing. This was storytelling through sound. As the song built toward its climax, the energy in the room reached a breaking point. The audience was no longer just listening, they were emotionally invested. Some stood up without realizing it. Some wiped tears from their eyes. One judge leaned forward, elbows on the desk, completely focused, while another shook their head slowly in disbelief, a smile forming that they could not hide. Then came the final note. He held it with absolute control, letting it ring out across the theater before gently releasing it into silence. For a split second, there was nothing. No clapping, no cheering, just shock, and then the room exploded. The audience jumped to their feet in a standing ovation that felt more like a celebration than applause. Cheers echoed from every corner. The judges stood as well, clapping enthusiastically, some laughing in disbelief, others visibly emotional. One judge wiped away tears, another placed a hand on their chest, clearly moved by what they had just experienced. When the applause finally settled, the performer opened his eyes, visibly overwhelmed. He took in the sight of hundreds of people standing for him, cheering his name, celebrating his talent. You could see the disbelief on his face, the realization that his dream was no longer just a dream. The judges began to speak, and their words carried genuine admiration. They admitted their doubts, openly acknowledging that they had underestimated him the moment he walked out. One judge said that this was exactly why they loved this show, because it reminded them never to judge a book by its cover. Another said his voice was one of the most surprising and beautiful they had heard in a very long time. They praised his courage, his authenticity, and the emotional honesty of his performance. The conversation shifted from surprise to respect. They asked about his journey, his struggles, and the moments that almost made him give up. He spoke honestly, sharing stories of rejection, self-doubt, and being laughed at for being different. He explained how music became his safe place, how singing allowed him to express emotions he could never put into words, and how this stage represented hope not just for him, but for anyone who had ever felt unseen. The audience listened closely, completely silent, hanging on every word. It was clear that his story resonated deeply. This was not just about talent. This was about resilience, courage, and staying true to yourself even when the world tells you not to. Then came the moment everyone waits for. The decision. The judges smiled before even giving their answer. One by one, they said yes, each with increasing enthusiasm. The final judge paused for dramatic effect, then delivered a yes that sent the audience into another wave of cheers. The performer covered his face with his hands, overwhelmed with emotion, before dropping to his knees in gratitude. Cheers flowed freely, not from sadness, but from relief and joy. As he left the stage, still wearing the crown that now felt symbolic rather than strange, the camera caught him backstage, hugging his family and supporters, all of them crying, laughing, and celebrating together. It was a moment of pure victory. But the impact of that performance did not end there. Clips of his audition spread rapidly online. Millions of people watched, shared, and commented, all expressing the same sentiment. They had been fooled by the costume, just like the judges, and they were grateful for the reminder that true talent often comes in unexpected forms. Messages poured in from people around the world, thanking him for inspiring them to embrace who they are and to never let appearances define their worth. His story became a symbol. A reminder that confidence is not about fitting in, but about standing out. That dreams do not have a specific look, age, or style. That sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk onto a stage exactly as you are and let your voice speak for itself. As the competition continued, expectations followed him. People wondered if he could live up to the unforgettable first impression he had made. But one thing was certain. No matter what happened next, that moment would live on as one of the most surprising and powerful auditions the show had ever seen.